and welcome back to Nolan Financial Radio. My name is Tara Nolan from Nolan Financial Partners. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We are going to be talking today about building a retirement full of adventure. And I just want to say right up front, this is a show about education. So as you go through the show today and you have a question that we're not getting to, or you just think of something you want to know about, please feel free to give Chris and I a call at 719-210-4242. And definitely visit us online at www.nolanfinancialpartners. While you're on the website, you can click up to set up a complimentary discovery call. And you can also go to the radio page and check out our past radio shows. We do a lot of educational topics from health insurance, IRAs, 401ks, insurance, almost anything you can think about in the financial world. And you can find a show that's probably going to answer a question that you have. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the program on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So again, don't hesitate to reach out to Chris and I with questions or set up a face-to-face or virtual meeting. That number is 719-210-4242. And you can also book a discovery call right online. So we're going to be talking about building a retirement full of adventure today. And I'm very excited because this is why we do this business, is we want to help people who've been working all their life to get to that retirement and be able to enjoy it and do awesome, cool things. And before we jump into the show, I wanted to reach out and say good morning to my amazing co-host, Tony Shore. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Tara. Thanks. Yeah, I've had a great week and great to be here. Sounds like we're going to have a fun show today. I know that this is going to be a great topic for our listeners. This is going to be a good one. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I've had a great week. I've just been busy and enjoying weather and getting outside a little more. How about you? What's going on over there with you and Chris?
Well, I keep saying it. We're just heavily immersed in the book and in writing edits. And in my reserve job, I've just graduated from command and I'm getting ready to transition to my new role. And I'll be going out to Germany and USAFE in Germany. And so putting all the pieces together, like getting an international driver's license and learning how to travel in a different country and putting all those pieces together. And Tony, it really ties into our show today because we're talking about going on adventures. So it's going to be the next adventure.
That is perfect because we're talking a lot about traveling today and retirement and adventure. So I think that is good. Now, Germany. So how long are you going to be in Germany, Tara?
Well,
if you don't mind me asking.
I'm a mobilization assistant. So I'll go for like small periods of time, like 2 weeks, a couple times a year. So,
okay.
Because my job at this point will be to backfill the boss. So
okay.
Yeah, it's different than command where I was there on task all the time, as a commander. So now this is a job where I go and I do backfill for the boss and then, different special projects, but it's not the full-time thing like I was doing.
Sure.
So,
well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Congratulations on that. And I've heard such good things about Germany. I had my brother and sister-in-law lived there for 3 years. They were stationed there because they're with the government. So, but our show today, we're going to talk about how to build a retirement full of adventure. And I think for our show today, it's it's Indiana Jones' 40th anniversary. So. But I don't know if we're all going to be as fit as Indiana Jones in retirement, but right? That's fun,
so.
Right?
Right? I love Harrison Ford. Every time, I think anytime you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, it comes on, like you have to pause and watch a little bit of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like you can't just scroll through that. And one of my favorites though is, do you ever watch The Big Bang Theory?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And they were talking about, the point is that in the whole movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones makes no difference to the entire plot. Like through all the adventures he has, nothing he does ever changes the outcome of what happens.
That's funny. That's really funny.
It's still a really fun show.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember that now. They were discussing that. That is true. I have to watch it again, though, with that in mind. I can't wait to do that. That'll be fun. So he goes...
Yeah, if you just take him out of the plot, like the whole movie would happen and it wouldn't even matter. So it's kind of funny. But I mean, the whole point of this today for people listening, and this is about retirement, is we work in our lives and we have our families and we get our kids to college and we get our kids married and we do all of these things. But you're also supposed to enjoy your life too. Your life is not just about taking care of everybody else. And one of the things I really like, Tony, is that we create this retirement strategy, and it goes through the whole, I call it the retirement life cycle. So you have the beginning part where you're in the get it phase, where you're trying to build your retirement. And then you have the got it phase where you're in retirement and you get to enjoy life. And then you have the give it phase at the end where you're going to do your transfer of wealth. But one of the big things is whether you're in your 40s or your 60s, we want to make sure that you set up a strategy so that you can actually enjoy the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. Well, that's
And
awesome. Yeah,
and
you have to have that strategy in place, right?
you do, Tony, and that's the fun thing, is how do you build income that's going to be tax-free? You know, you want your safe money accounts, you want to have your tax-free accounts, and you want to have your growth accounts, but you want that balance, right? Because you don't want to be caught in the lurch where there's going to be a 2008 in the middle of your retirement. So anyway, all those things come together, but it's all about what we're going to talk about today, is having these retirement adventures.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to this one. And obviously, retirement doesn't just have to be about, shuffleboard or early bird specials, maybe some pickleball or sitting on the couch or golfing. You can have a lot more adventurous retirement, and a lot of people do. And I know most people I talk to who are entering in retirement, they want to travel or see the world or take the grandkids to Disney World a couple of times and do things like that, right?
They do, Tony. And so of course, we're always doing reading, and we've got some just great ideas out there for people to think about when you're getting into retirement. And I'm just going to jump right in. Like now I have to say, like sitting on the couch and watching movies, I do enjoy that as well.
Well, I love that myself. Yeah.
But here's like a really cool idea. I mean, I've thought of this as like a kid graduating from college and maybe taking your gap year. But have you thought about train travel?
Trains. Wow. That's something I haven't thought about.
I haven't thought about it in a while, but you can, getting on a train, it can be easy and comfortable, and you can travel through a country and see all the landscapes and the culture.
That's true.
You just set your bags down, grab a seat by the window. It's not like you're on an airplane and you're cramped in. And like they have the Eurail passes that can take you across Europe.
Yeah.
There's the Blue Train that will go across South Africa. And there's the Golden Eagle that goes across Russia. And so when you get on the train, it's a lot of your logistics are taken care of. And it's a pretty cool, I forget, I've taken a few trips on the train myself. When I was in China with Chris, we did some traveling on the train, and it was very comfortable, and you can get up and walk around, and then you get to see the whole countryside.
Yeah. That is neat. Never really thought about that, to be honest. And adventure has its place, but kicking back on one of the world's iconic trains, as you mentioned, a few of them there, and enjoying a good meal, just relaxing. That sounds really good because you're able to see a lot of the countryside that way. You're right.
And I can tell you, my mom watches some slow travel thing on TV, and it's just this train that's traveling through the country. So people enjoy it virtually. So that's the thing. But there's the next thing, Tony, is that there's nothing wrong with combining adventure and first-rate amenities.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons that we love the Indiana Jones movies is he travels to all these exotic places.
Yeah.
And I was watching a movie recently, and this woman, her whole premise is she was going on a around the world retirement trip and visiting places from her favorite movies.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And I'm like, because I do that. I mean, I love when I'm traveling somewhere
idea.
And I'm like, oh, I've seen that. Seen that on TV. And so one of the cool places you can look up is the UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Oh, yeah.
And
I've heard of the World Heritage Sites.
There's like 1,000 of these sites throughout the world, and they're chosen based on their historical, their cultural, and scientific importance. And I can tell you that we just recently took a trip down to Cancun, and with my brother and his father-in-law, who actually had lived in Mexico City for years. And he took us down to Tulum, and we went and saw some of the ruins. the Mayan ruins.
Yeah, the Mayan ruins are awesome.
And I know people normally go to Chichen Itza, but I had never been there. But we went and saw the ruins there, and got the historical background, and just kind of amazing. Like when you go back in history so far to see like the knowledge people had, where they had the buildings built so that it lined up on certain times of the year, so that you knew when to plant the crops, and really,
Wow, that's
really,
amazing.
really interesting. And then just traveling and looking at the different water features that were available. So
Sure.
yeah,
That's awesome. Well, and I've read about World Heritage sites. You mentioned World Heritage sites, and those are breathtaking. I mean, they include the Taj Mahal, Venice, Easter. One of my favorites, Easter Island, with the big dum dum
yeah.
head statues. I love that. I would love to go there. I find that fascinating. If you've ever read about that, it's just it's a mystery, right? They don't know. It's kind of like Stonehenge. It's like, how did these things get here? But the Everglades in Florida, right here in the States, it's a beautiful. I've talked to people who have done that and done the Everglades tour, and I guess it's fantastic. And that's something you don't hear about a lot, but there's a lot of World Heritage sites out there. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I've got a lot of them on my bucket list. I was just talking with one of my bosses who had just recently done Machu Picchu. And
Oh,
so I definitely, that's on my list now too. But here's
yeah.
another thing too that's pretty cool to think about if you're looking for exotic travel or something different, is bird watching. It's a
Ah,
really cool option. And you might be going like, birds, seriously? But hear me out, Tony. It's
okay.
pretty interesting because some of the world's most beautiful birds are also in beautiful locations. And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
while you might be on a bird watching trip, you're going to be in a really cool place as well.
Yeah, that's true.
And it can take you off the beaten path, and you can kind of be like a nice leisurely pace, because I don't know
Yeah.
about you, Tony, but sometimes I get so busy, I need a vacation that's going to help me just like settle
Yes.
and not be in the
Yeah.
middle of the rush and hustle and bustle of a city.
Sure. Yeah. So some people like that rush, and some people want to really relax. And so, and you can kind of tailor your trip around that. But tailoring sightseeing around bird watching, that's actually not a bad idea when you think about it, because a lot of exotic birds are in exotic places, obviously. So I think that's good. And adventure at a pace that works for retirees. I'm glad you kind of brought that up. That's important. I mean, after all, Harrison Ford, who we know as Indiana Jones, he's 79 now. So
Wow.
his jumping into snake pit days are probably over. Although I say that, and then I just read that they're making a new Indiana Jones movie, another one. But I don't think he's going to be the main character in the movie either. So yeah, if he's in it at all. So that's true.
But I love it though, Tony. So we've got like the bird watching, the nature trip, but then there are also adventures, and I love this one, is visiting cities that have hosted the Olympics.
Oh, that's a good one.
And since the first modern games in Athens in 1896, more than 40 cities have played host. And I can tell you, Tony, when I went to Beijing about, gosh, it's been about 8 years ago, we went they called it the Bird's Nest. So they built this gigantic stadium, and it's like, like everything in China, like the architecture is amazing, and it looks like this gigantic bird's nest.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we were able to just ride our bikes and go and enter it in and walk around and look. And they had, like little mini UK with the double decker bus. And they had all these just different things that you would expect in something that had hosted the Olympics.
Wow, that's
And we
cool.
were able to have a couple different kinds of meals in different places. So that's a really cool trip. And, a lot of the places are very accessible by train or vehicle. And then there's even an Olympic museum in Switzerland.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Well, I never would have thought of that, but you're right. I mean, another big benefit of visiting Olympic sites is that those cities that have hosted the Olympics are really friendly to outsiders and visitors of all ages and nationalities. So they're going to be well suited for that. You don't have to worry about the foreign language issue typically in those cities, because they're used to hosting people from other countries. I think that would be a huge advantage. And I'm thinking about some of the cities that have hosted the Olympics. Those would be great places to visit.
Oh yeah, just I mean because of the history and just
Yeah.
something very interesting. And this is just exciting, Tony, because here's another one that I was reading about, and I love this idea. And I had a little story to share with this too. Is how many people do you know that have done that ancestry.com?
Oh yeah.
And look,
Tracing their ancestry back. Yeah.
and so that's a really cool kind of a trip to do when you think about it. And so I know my family came over, my great grandmother came over from Ireland when she was 16.
Ah.
And they ended up settling out on Long Island. And so actually we still have some family. My grandmother's brothers and sisters still live in Ireland. So my mom recently
Wow.
took me on a trip, and we went and spent time in County Mayo, and we went to Inishmaan and Donegal and up to Letterkenny. And it was funny, we were going into Derry, and my family's Irish, and when you want to cross into there, the British want you to call it Londonderry.
Oh, jeez.
And sometimes they won't let you cross in unless you call it Londonderry. And the Irish are stubborn. They're like, no, I'm going to Derry.
Oh, that's funny. I did not know that. That's
No.
awesome.
And so it's very funny because you learn a little bit about your family, and you're like, oh, that's where I get that stubbornness from.
Well, yeah, Tara, I'm half Irish. I think I've mentioned that before. My mom's side of the family is Irish. So my mother's family is Irish, and her great grandfather came from Ireland. So the Whelans. And so I'm half Irish, and you're making me jealous because this is a bucket list item. And actually this year, Sarah and I have been talking about, let's do it, because my wife's sister, or my mom's sisters, they went over there and they traced the Whelan family, at least our clan, back to the village where it came from. So that's a lifelong dream, to go to Ireland, trace my ancestry there, and see it. And so now you're telling me you've done it, and I'm jealous. I'm really
and Tony,
jelly.
And it's a fabulous. So the first time my mom did it, they set up and they did a walking tours. So they basically they would hike from bed and breakfast to bed and breakfast, and part of the trip was that they would bring their stuff to the next B&B. So they did a walking trip across Ireland.
Oh my gosh.
Here's a really unique thing I learned when I went to Ireland. Is my uncle or my cousin, I don't know what the relation was, but he took us to the Michael Davitt Museum. And I had never heard of Michael Davitt before, but apparently Michael Davitt was the Irishman that kicked the British out of Ireland, basically using passive resistance. And
Wow.
Gandhi in India learned that passive resistance technique from Michael Davitt, this guy in Ireland.
Wow.
And I think it's funny because they both had a British problem.
Yeah, they did. That's true.
And
wow, that's interesting.
And so it's just, so when you travel and you're tracing your ancestry, it's just, you're just going to learn things that you just never would have thought about.
Well,
so
I'm half
I get
English.
Goosebumps thinking about
that. I'm half English, half Irish. Almost complete 50-50. Almost complete 50-50.
So you could be at war with yourself.
I'm always at war with myself. That's what I always say. Yeah. So I've got that problem when I go over there. And I have been to England, and I have traced the shore side. So I need to go to Ireland now because I really want to see that side of the family. And see where I'm from. But that's a great travel idea. And in retirement, that one I have heard about, and I have thought about it myself. So trace your ancestry. That's a fun thing to do. And we're talking about things you can do, especially in your go-go years. We've talked about that, the 3 stages of retirement. Once you retire, you've got your go-go years, your slow-go years, and your no-go years. So do the adventurous things we're talking about during those go-go years to really enjoy them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Tara, we should probably take a moment now to let our listeners know, I know you have a special offer for them, right?
Well, I would just want for everybody listening to please remember to visit my website at www.nolanfinancialpartners.com or call the office at 719-210-4242. and you can discuss how we can answer your questions and concerns about the path to retirement. And Tony, Chris and I have set aside some complimentary appointments for today. And what we'd like to offer for folks that dial in today is we'll run a complimentary Social Security maximization report, because this is one of those key pieces of information that really gets you started understanding your foundational money for retirement. So we will do a complimentary Social Security maximization report for folks that go ahead and set up a meeting today. And Tony, the website is www.nolanfinancialpartners.com, and the number is 719-210-4242.
All right, that's an easy one. 719-210-4242. Tara, thanks for that. And I know that the consultation, there's no cost or obligation, and the report you're going to run, no cost or obligation. And that way, you know exactly what to do and when to do it and get that plan in place. I think that's fantastic. And today, what a great show. We're talking about having a retirement full of adventure, and it's been a good one, action-packed so far. So what's the next tip you have for us?
Well, this next one, Tony, is interesting to me because I know a lot of people have done this in Europe, are river cruises.
Oh, wow.
And this one's always appealed to me because I've heard people talk about their stories when they've gone like the Danube River in Europe. And, you know, it always flies a little bit under the radar because you always think about cruises with long ocean voyages, right? You know, the big Disney cruise ship. But some of these nice luxury cruises are actually on the world's most legendary rivers. And it's a really it's a nice way to combine adventure with relaxation and amenities. And Tony, I can say I definitely fit in that category. Like, I love to go hiking, but I want to sleep in a nice hotel. I don't want to sleep on the ground anymore.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, and these European, especially the European luxury river tours, you see the ads for them, the really nice and really fancy, like 5-star luxury river cruise from Viking or whatever Viking cruises through, like, you know, mountains in the Netherlands and different countries in Europe. It looks Greece. It looks beautiful.
Oh, amazing, Tony. And
yeah,
so if people are listening and getting excited about some of these trips that we're talking about, I think there's probably always like that niggling concern in the back of the head about, well, is my retirement strategy going to provide me enough money to be able to do that? And so, especially, Tony, for people that are a few years away from retirement, this is where you want to think about, you know, the book I'm writing is Money Moves. Changing where your money lives changes how your financial world grows. So now's the time to look at your strategy and say, as part of your strategy, are you providing enough retirement income so that you can do some fun things like taking these retirement adventures?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just, if you look online, like you're back to river cruises. I mean, you can just go to Viking river cruises, and there's just the places they go in Europe. Those it's amazing. That actually appeals to me. Typically, I'm not a cruise person. You know, I know there's people who like to go on the boat cruises on the ocean and things like that, and that's not for me. But a river cruise might be more up my alley.
Well, and it's always, you know, living in America where everything is so far apart. And we were talking about Germany from like where I'm going to be in Ramstein, like Paris is only like 2 hours away. And, you know, well, it takes me 2 hours almost just to get to Denver. and that would be a normal trip I would do. So when, you know, from Europe, it's a jumping off point to go. You can just be in entirely different countries within 2 hours.
Sure. Yeah, that's
true.
So
a river cruise will just take you through all these different countries and have all these different experiences on one trip.
That's awesome. Well, I have a quick question for you. I'm guessing some of our listeners out there are excited about taking some of the trips you're talking about, but they're probably concerned, Tara, that their current retirement strategy isn't going to be able to provide them with the funds to do so, at least for some. And if somebody's still a few years away from retirement at this point, is there time to change their strategy a bit with the goal of providing more retirement income?
You know, Tony, that's a great question. And the most honest answer is definitely possibly, because depending on your current circumstances and your goals, and as well as your risk tolerance, Tony, I would say absolutely there's ways to provide retirement income. And one of the things I really like to do with a lot of people is I find that they've spent a lot of time creating this great 401k. So A plus for that. But
Yeah.
what's missing in the gap that they have in their retirement plan is something that's going to cover their long-term care and something that's going to provide them some tax-free income. And so I like to help people balance out that strategy, Tony, to say, you've got this great 401k that's in the market, but it's totally exposed to risk. And I like creating some safe money accounts that are going to provide protection. So that way, when the market is down, then you have different ways to survive and enjoy your life. Because who wants to wake up in the morning and go, what's going on with the Dow Jones Industrial?
Well, exactly. Well, and Tara, I want to jump in here because I know our listeners want that plan in place and want that strategy. And you're offering a complimentary, no cost, no obligation consultation. So what's that phone number our listeners can call to set up the consultation?
Sure, Tony. The number is 719-210-4242. And I'll say that again. It's 719-210-4242. And Tony, particularly for today, it says people who are getting very close to retirement, they've got a great 401k, but they don't have the entire holistic plan in place to protect them and protect that nest egg they've built. And you want to be able to enjoy retirement because you don't want to be afraid you're going to run out of money. You want to be able to have a plan in place so that you can enjoy all the hard work you've put in.
Yeah. Exactly. And you can do some of the things we've been talking about on the show today. I think that's critical. So, this has been a great discussion, and we've talked a lot about adventures in retirement. And, and we've mentioned it before on the show. You've talked about things like some people want to live in an RV for a couple of years and travel around the country here in the U.S. and drive cross country. That's a retirement adventure. I think, hey, a big adventure to me and something that's going to be crazy would be just, taking the kids or grandkids to Disney World. Seems like a pretty big adventure these days, right? So, and not all of us are going to be over in Germany and have been in China like yourself. You got a trip coming to going to Germany soon. So now, are you planning that trip during Oktoberfest, or is that your trip to Germany?
No, I think actually I'm going to be hitting the tail end of Oktoberfest, but
no, I know that's not where you're going to be and not why you're going. They've got you busy over there, but great. And, just before we go today, Tara, I think you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're still working on that book and working on some final edits. So what a process it's been. You've been sharing it with me as you go, and it's just like, wow. I've always wanted to write a book, but now I'm not so sure because you've put a lot of work into yours, and I'm like, I'm too late. I'm like, that's a lot of work. But our listeners are going to be excited to get copies. And so I want to tell them to keep tuning in because I know you're going to have copies to give away on the show. And even better, you're giving away personal consultations. They can meet with you or Chris in person and talk about their financial strategies and plans. So before we go today, give them that phone number and information on how they can do that one more time.
Sure, Tony. So for folks listening in today that want to take a look at their strategy and go, I want to be able to really enjoy retirement. And that number, Tony, to set up the complimentary call appointment is 719-210-4242. And Tony, people can also book a complimentary discovery call through the website at www.taraenolan.com or www.nolanfinancialpartners.com. Either way will get you right to our website.
All right. Sounds great. And listeners, that does it for today's episode of Nolan Financial Radio with our host, Tara Nolan.
Join us again for another episode of Nolan Financial Radio. Take care, and we'll talk with you next time.